Chosen one, you thought they were yours forever, but your soulmate just made a secret deal to marry their ex. God says, my child, listen carefully. I know your heart has been carrying questions that no one else can answer. You smiled in front of people, yet your soul kept whispering the same painful thought. You believed someone would always belong beside you. You believed love would find its way without breaking your heart first. Then everything became quiet. Calls became shorter. Messages lost their warmth. Hope slowly turned into silence. But I have been with you through every lonely night. I have watched every tear that never reached another person's eyes. I have also seen something you could not see. There is a hidden truth behind everything that happened. It is not as simple as it appears. Before this message goes any further, if these words already speak to your heart, gently write Amen in the comments. Let your faith answer before your fear does. My beloved child, stay with me because what you are about to understand will change the way you see this painful chapter. My child, listen closely. You have been wondering why your heart suddenly felt restless. Why did their name return to your thoughts without warning? Why did old memories appear while you were trying to move forward? It was not because I wanted to reopen your wounds. It was because the truth was quietly moving beneath the surface. The person you have called your soulmate reached a place where fear became louder than faith. They stood at a crossroads, carrying old memories they never fully released. Someone from their past appeared again. Their ex returned with familiar words, familiar promises, and familiar comfort. It looked safe. It looked easy. It looked like the fastest way to escape loneliness. And in that moment, a private conversation began that you never knew about. My child. Listen carefully. That conversation did not begin with love. It began with fear. Your soulmate was exhausted from waiting. They questioned whether happiness would ever arrive. They wondered if they had misunderstood my timing. Instead of bringing those questions to me, they carried them back into yesterday. They listened to a voice that reminded them of what once felt familiar. Familiar is not always faithful. Comfortable is not always right. Their heart became confused. They started thinking that returning to the past might finally bring peace. But peace never grows where fear makes the decisions. I watched them sit alone one evening. Rain touched the window while the room stayed almost silent. A small lamp glowed beside an open Bible that had not been read for days. Their phone rested face down on the table. They kept staring toward the empty chair across from them. They remembered the dreams they once carried. They remembered the prayers they once whispered. They also remembered you. Your name crossed their mind more than once. Yet they pushed that thought away because waiting had become painful. That is when the secret offer was placed before them. The word sounded simple. Let's stop fighting the past. Let's marry and begin again. Those words carried no shouting. No dramatic moment. Just quiet pressure wrapped inside gentle promises. My child, many hearts are not broken by loud storms. They are slowly pulled away by peaceful-sounding lies. Your soulmate wanted relief more than wisdom. they almost believed that going backward meant moving forward. But heaven was still watching every choice they made. My beloved child, I know hearing this hurts. You may be asking why I allowed such a moment to happen. Listen to me with your whole heart. Love cannot grow where choice does not exist. Every heart must decide whether to trust fear or trust me. Even those you deeply love must walk through their own moments of testing. I never stopped loving them during that struggle. I never stopped loving you either. My hands remained over both of your lives, even when neither of you could see my work. You spent nights asking me for answers. Sometimes you spoke through tears. Other times you could not even find words. You simply looked toward heaven and sighed. I heard every silent prayer. I collected every hidden disappointment. Nothing escaped my attention. While you thought nothing was changing, I was protecting parts of your future that you could not yet understand. What feels delayed is not always abandoned. Sometimes it is simply being rescued from becoming something it was never meant to be. Your soulmate tried convincing themselves that marrying their ex would erase every unanswered question. They smiled during conversations that never reached their eyes. They nodded while their heart quietly hesitated. They looked at old photographs and searched for feelings that no longer lived there. They wanted certainty. Instead they found memories. Memories cannot replace peace. They cannot build tomorrow. Only truth can do that. Deep inside, they felt a quiet emptiness that refused to disappear. My child, there was one evening when they walked into a small church almost by accident. The room was nearly empty. Soft worship music filled the air. A single cross stood before them. They sat in the last row without speaking. Their hands trembled. Their eyes filled with tears they had hidden from everyone. They whispered a prayer they never planned to pray. God, if I am making the wrong choice, please stop me before I hurt someone forever. Heaven heard that prayer immediately. I never ignore a heart that honestly seeks me. That prayer became the beginning of something they did not expect. It did not erase every fear overnight. It did not suddenly answer every question. But it opened a door that fear had tried to lock. They began noticing small reminders of my presence. A scripture appeared at the right moment. A trusted friend spoke unexpected wisdom. A quiet feeling returned each time they thought about rushing into that secret agreement. Their heart could no longer ignore what I was gently showing them. My beloved child, maybe you think this message means everything will instantly become easy. It does not. Real healing takes honesty. Honest hearts often walk through uncomfortable moments before they discover lasting peace. Your soulmate still has choices ahead. So do you. I am not asking you to chase anyone. I am asking you to trust me. Pray instead of worrying. Trust my timing. I am already working where you cannot yet see. The future is never built by panic. It is built by faithful steps taken one day at a time. As these words reach your heart, remember one simple truth. The secret agreement was real. The fear behind it was real. But fear has never written the final chapter of any life that remains willing to listen to me. If this message brings hope into your heart, remember the number 777 today as a gentle reminder that I have not stepped away from your situation. It is only a reminder to keep your eyes on me, not a promise of any specific outcome. Let it remind you that my presence is closer than your doubts. You who are listening, there is another truth I have not yet revealed. Your soulmate believed only 2 people knew about that hidden agreement. They were mistaken. Someone unexpected witnessed a moment they thought would remain buried forever. That person has remained silent until now. Soon, a conversation will begin that neither your soulmate nor their ex is prepared for. When those words are finally spoken, every reason behind that secret decision will come into the light. Before that moment arrives, I first needed your heart to be steady, because what you are about to understand next will change everything you believed about why they almost chose the past instead of the future. My child, listen carefully. Before that conversation begins, I need you to understand what was happening inside your soulmate's heart. From the outside, they looked calm. They laughed when people expected them to laugh. They answered simple questions with simple words. But every quiet evening became a battle that no one else could see. They kept asking themselves whether choosing the past would finally silence the pain. They wanted peace more than anything. Yet every time they imagined standing beside their ex at the altar, something deep inside them became heavy. It was not because they hated that person. It was because the future I had prepared for them could not fit inside a decision made from fear. My beloved child, many people mistake emotional exhaustion for clarity. They believe the easiest path must also be the right path. But my wisdom often whispers where fear demands quick answers. That whisper continued following your soulmate everywhere they went. They could ignore it for a moment, but they could never escape it. My child, listen closely. One quiet morning they opened a drawer they had not touched for months. Inside rested old letters, faded photographs, and memories they believed would convince them to return. They slowly read every page. They smiled at certain moments. Then they cried without warning. They realized something painful. Almost every beautiful memory was followed by another memory of disappointment, distance, broken promises, or silent loneliness. They had been remembering only the highlights while forgetting the wounds. Fear edits the past until it looks safer than it really was. But truth restores every missing detail. As those forgotten memories returned, they quietly closed the box and whispered, "Maybe I have been remembering the wrong version of my past." That single sentence opened another door for my healing. My beloved child. While this was happening, you were carrying your own questions. You wondered if I had forgotten you. You looked at other people building families and celebrating love while your own future seemed uncertain. Some nights you stared at the ceiling long after everyone else was asleep. The room felt still. Your phone stayed silent. Yet your prayers reached heaven without delay. Every tear that touched your pillow spoke a language that I understand perfectly. You never needed perfect words. You only needed an honest heart. I was already surrounding you with protection that you could not yet recognize. If I had answered every prayer exactly when you requested it, your heart might have walked into pain that would have taken years to heal. My timing has always been an expression of my love. My child, listen carefully. Days later your soulmate met their ex again. It was supposed to be a simple conversation. They sat across from each other in a quiet restaurant. Soft music played in the background. Other people laughed around them, unaware of the weight resting on that table. Their ex smiled with confidence and began talking about wedding plans as though everything had already been decided. Dates were mentioned. Places were suggested. Dreams were described. But your soulmate remained unusually quiet. Every sentence they heard sounded louder than the one before. Instead of excitement, they felt pressure. Instead of peace, they felt confusion. They realized they were agreeing with their mouth while their heart kept searching for something else. That hidden struggle became impossible to ignore. My beloved child. At that exact moment I placed a gentle interruption before them. Their phone suddenly lit up. It was not a dramatic miracle. It was a simple message from an elderly believer who had not contacted them for many months. The message said only a few words. Do not build tomorrow with yesterday's fears. Pray before you decide. Nothing more. Those words were enough. Your soulmate stared at the screen for several seconds. They quietly excused themselves from the table and stepped outside. A gentle breeze moved through the evening air. They looked toward the sky and breathed deeply. Tears filled their eyes because they knew that reminder was not an accident. I was answering the prayer they had whispered inside that empty church. My child. You may wonder why I work through such quiet moments. It is because love does not always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it comes through one unexpected sentence, one peaceful reminder, one open Bible, one faithful friend, or one silent conviction that refuses to leave your heart. My guidance is often gentle because I desire willing hearts, not forced obedience. Your soulmate was beginning to understand this. The secret agreement no longer felt like a rescue. It began feeling like a burden they were never meant to carry. Their hearts slowly changed, even though nobody around them could yet see it. My child, listen closely. There was another person watching all of this unfold. This was not someone looking for gossip. It was someone who truly cared about your soulmate's well-being. They noticed that every conversation about the wedding ended with quiet sadness instead of joyful expectation. They noticed forced smiles. They noticed tired eyes. Finally, they asked one honest question. Are you marrying them because you love them, or because you are afraid to wait any longer? The room became completely silent. Your soulmate could not answer. That silence revealed more than any speech ever could. Sometimes the hardest truth is the one we cannot deny after hearing the right question. My beloved child. Do not allow bitterness to grow inside your own heart while these events continue unfolding. Forgiveness does not mean pretending that pain never happened. Forgiveness means refusing to let someone else's confusion become the prison that traps your future. I am healing both hearts in different ways. Your healing is teaching you patience, trust, and peace. Their healing is teaching them honesty, courage, and surrender. Neither lesson is easy. Both are necessary. Growth often happens quietly before anyone notices its fruit. If these words are giving hope to your heart, share this message with someone who also needs hope today. Someone close to you may be carrying silent questions that only my peace can calm. Your simple act of kindness could become the reminder they have been praying to receive. My child, never underestimate how I can use one faithful heart to encourage another. My child, listen carefully. That hidden agreement was beginning to crack, but it had not yet completely fallen apart. The greatest struggle was still ahead. Your soulmate now understood that fear had influenced their decision, yet they also feared hurting people by changing direction. They worried about disappointment. They worried about embarrassment. They worried about what others might say. Many people remain trapped because they fear temporary discomfort more than lifelong regret. I gently reminded them that truth may cost something today, but deception always costs far more tomorrow. My beloved child. While they wrestled with that decision, something unexpected happened. They found an old notebook they had almost thrown away. Between its pages rested a handwritten prayer from years earlier. They slowly unfolded it with trembling hands. The final line stopped them completely. It read, "Lord, never let me marry someone simply because I am afraid of being alone." They stared at those words for a long time. It felt as though their younger self had spoken directly into that very moment. They realized they were standing at the edge of breaking the promise they had once made before me. Their tears returned, but this time they carried hope instead of confusion. You who are listening, stay close to me. What happens next is not about winning against another person. It is about truth overcoming fear, healing replacing confusion, and hearts learning to trust my perfect timing again. The conversation that is about to take place will reveal something hidden for much longer than anyone realizes. When those carefully guarded words are finally spoken, your soulmate will understand that the secret agreement was never the deepest secret at all. The deepest secret has been buried inside one heart for years, and when it finally comes into the light, nothing about this decision will ever look the same again. My child, listen carefully. The hidden truth I spoke of was never written on a document or spoken during that secret agreement. It lived quietly inside your soulmate's heart. For years they convinced themselves that they had completely moved on. They believed enough time had erased every unanswered feeling. They thought closing one chapter automatically healed every wound. But healing and hiding are not the same. A heart can appear settled while still carrying questions that only my presence can answer. That is why, even after agreeing to marry their ex, peace refused to remain with them. Every morning began with uncertainty. Every evening ended with another silent prayer. They finally realized they were not afraid of losing the past. They were afraid of trusting the future I had been preparing all along. My beloved child, I watched them sit alone inside their car after another difficult meeting. The engine was off. The windows slowly filled with mist. They rested both hands on the steering wheel and closed their eyes. They whispered, "Lord, why does everything feel wrong when everyone keeps telling me it is right?" That question came from an honest place. Honest questions never offend me. I welcome them because they open the door for truth. Instead of answering immediately, I allowed a peaceful silence to surround them. In that silence they remembered something they had almost forgotten. They remembered how different they felt whenever they prayed for you. There was no pressure. No pretending. Only quiet hope. That memory stayed with them long after they drove away. My child, listen closely. Your soulmate started noticing something they had ignored for months. Every conversation with their ex focused on fixing yesterday. Every quiet thought about you pointed toward tomorrow. That difference became impossible to overlook. One relationship kept asking them to relive old memories. The other invited them to believe that healing was still possible. Fear always looks backward. Faith always moves forward. Their hearts slowly understood this truth. Even though they had not spoken your name aloud, it remained close to every prayer they offered me. My child. During the following weekend they visited their family. Everyone expected joyful wedding conversations. Instead, the room felt strangely heavy. Relatives smiled. Plans were discussed. Dates were mentioned again. Yet your soulmate barely spoke. An older family member quietly observed everything. Later that evening, after everyone else had gone home, that person gently placed a hand on their shoulder and asked, "When was the last time I saw real peace in your eyes?" Your soulmate lowered their head. Tears filled their eyes before any words could come. Sometimes the people who truly love us notice our silence before they notice our smiles. My beloved child, do not think I was absent while all of this unfolded. Every conversation was happening under my watchful care. I was not forcing anyone's decision. I was inviting every heart toward honesty. Love cannot grow inside a life built upon fear. A marriage may begin with beautiful decorations, smiling photographs, and joyful music, but if the foundation is fear, the house will eventually shake. I love your soulmate too much to ignore that danger. I also love you too much to allow confusion to become your permanent home. My child, listen carefully. That same night your soulmate opened the Bible that had remained untouched for many days. It opened naturally to words about trusting me with all their heart instead of depending on their own understanding. They read the passage once. Then again. Then a third time. The room remained completely still. They slowly realized that every important decision of the last few months had been guided more by anxiety than by faith. That realization hurt deeply. But healing often begins with painful honesty. Instead of closing the Bible, they knelt beside their bed. They did not ask me to bless the secret agreement anymore. They asked me to reveal the truth, even if it completely changed their plans. My beloved child. Heaven always responds to humble hearts. The next few days brought unexpected moments that nobody could have arranged. Meetings were delayed. Important phone calls were cancelled. Certain conversations happened at exactly the right time. None of these events looked extraordinary to other people. Yet together they gently slowed every step toward that marriage. What seemed like inconvenience was actually protection. Sometimes my answer is not opening a door. Sometimes my answer is quietly delaying the wrong one until truth has enough time to speak. My child, listen closely. Meanwhile, you continued living your daily life without knowing any of this. There were moments when you almost gave up praying. You wondered whether your waiting had any purpose left. But every time discouragement tried to settle into your heart, I gently reminded you to keep walking with me instead of chasing answers you could not control. My child, your peace has never depended on another person's choices. It has always depended on my presence. Even before this situation is fully resolved, I want your heart to rest in that truth. I am your foundation before I am your provider of every answer. One quiet afternoon, your soulmate received an invitation to meet their ex once again. They knew this conversation could decide everything. Their hands trembled while driving there. They prayed the entire journey. Lord, give me courage to speak honestly. That prayer was different from every prayer before it. They were no longer asking me to remove discomfort. They were asking me for strength to walk through it. That is how real transformation begins. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing truth while fear still whispers. My beloved child, as they sat across from their ex, something unexpected happened. Before your soulmate could speak, their ex admitted something surprising. They confessed that they also sensed something was missing. They admitted they had been trying to rebuild the relationship because they feared starting over alone. Those words changed the entire atmosphere. For the first time, both of them stopped pretending. Neither one was speaking from anger. Neither one was trying to win. Two wounded hearts were finally being honest. Honesty can be painful, but it is far kinder than building a future upon false certainty. My child, listen carefully. That conversation lasted much longer than either of them expected. Tears were shed. Old misunderstandings were finally discussed. Forgiveness was offered where bitterness had lived for years. Yet something became clearer with every passing minute. They cared about each other as people, but they no longer carried the same calling together. They had mistaken unfinished healing for unfinished love. There is a difference. Healing sometimes requires facing the past. It does not always require returning to it. Your soulmate finally understood that truth. My beloved child, before leaving that meeting they quietly said, I cannot continue with this marriage because my decision was born from fear, not peace. Those words were difficult to speak. They knew some people would not understand. They knew disappointment would follow. Yet the moment those words left their lips, a burden that had rested upon their heart for many months suddenly lifted. They walked outside and took the deepest breath they had taken in a very long time. Freedom often arrives immediately after obedience. You who are listening, do not misunderstand what I am showing you. This is not about celebrating another person's pain. It is about celebrating truth. Pray for every heart involved. Pray with compassion instead of pride. Pray with humility instead of judgment. The path of restoration is always built upon grace. I desire healing for everyone touched by this situation, even those whose plans must now change. My child, there is still one important truth I have not yet revealed to you. Ending the secret agreement was only the first step. Your soulmate still carries one confession they have never spoken aloud to anyone. It has remained hidden behind fear for much longer than the marriage plans themselves. That confession is not about the past. It is about the moment they finally realized whose absence never truly left their heart. Before they can move forward with complete peace, that hidden truth must finally be spoken, and when it is, both your understanding and theirs will be forever changed. My child, listen carefully. A heart can hide many things from other people, but it can never hide from me. I saw every moment your soulmate tried to silence the truth. They stayed busy. They filled their calendar. They surrounded themselves with conversations. Yet every quiet moment brought the same realization back again. They were no longer running from another person. They were running from what I had been gently revealing inside them. Truth does not become weaker because it is ignored. It becomes louder each time a willing heart pauses long enough to listen. That is why peace continued calling them while fear slowly lost its voice. My beloved child, a few days after ending that secret agreement, your soulmate returned to the small church where they had first cried out to me. It was early in the morning. Sunlight passed gently through the stained glass windows. The room was almost empty. They walked slowly toward the front and quietly knelt. No dramatic words came. Only tears. Sometimes tears become the most honest prayer a person can offer. They whispered, "Lord, thank you for stopping me before I built my future on confusion. Now show me what I have been too afraid to admit." I welcomed that prayer because it came from complete surrender. My child, listen closely. As they remained there in silence, memories began returning one by one. Not memories of grand moments or perfect conversations. Small moments. Honest moments. They remembered feeling safe enough to be themselves. They remembered praying with hope instead of pressure. They remembered smiling without pretending. Then they understood something that shook their heart. They had spent so much time trying to protect themselves from disappointment that they almost walked away from the very future they once prayed for. Fear had disguised itself as wisdom. But my wisdom always brings peace, even when the road ahead is uncertain. My child. At the same time, I was quietly working inside your own heart. You had begun releasing your need to control every outcome. You no longer checked for signs every hour. You no longer measured my faithfulness by another person's actions. Instead, you started placing your hope in me again. That change mattered more than you realized. Before I restore anything around you, I first strengthen what is within you. A peaceful heart can recognize my direction far more clearly than an anxious one. Every prayer you prayed with trust instead of fear became another step toward healing. My beloved child, your soulmate soon realized there was one conversation they could no longer avoid. It was not with their family. It was not with their friends. It was with themselves. They stood before a mirror one quiet evening and finally spoke words they had been afraid to hear. I never truly stopped caring. Those words were not spoken with excitement. They were spoken with humility. They understood that caring for someone does not guarantee the future. They also understood that hidden feelings should never control another person's life. But honesty before me was necessary. Healing cannot grow where denial remains. My child, listen carefully. After admitting that truth, they opened an old notebook once again. This time they were not searching for memories. They were searching for understanding. Between several pages rested a folded piece of paper they had never noticed before. It contained a prayer they had written years earlier after asking me to guide every important relationship in their life. The final sentence caught their attention immediately. It read, "Lord, if someone is truly part of the future you have prepared for me, never let fear separate us. Teach me patience instead of panic." They stared at those words for a long time. Their own handwriting reminded them of a faith they had almost forgotten. My beloved child. I often remind my children of promises they once made in faith because those promises reveal who they truly desired to become. Your soulmate realized they had almost abandoned that prayer simply because waiting became difficult. Waiting is never wasted when it draws a heart closer to me. Every season has been shaping both of you differently. You have learned endurance. They have learned honesty. Neither lesson came easily. Both lessons prepared your hearts for greater wisdom. My child, listen closely. One afternoon your soulmate met with the elderly believer who had first sent that unexpected message. They shared everything. Nothing remained hidden. The older believer listened quietly without interruption. When your soulmate finished speaking, only one question was asked. Has fear ever given you lasting peace? They slowly shook their head. Then another question followed. Has God ever failed you, even when you did not understand His timing? Again, they could not answer with anything except silence. That silence became another turning point. Sometimes the simplest questions uncover the deepest truth. My child. As your soulmate walked home, the evening sky began changing colors. A gentle breeze moved through the trees. Everything around them felt calm. For the first time in many months, they were no longer carrying the weight of pretending. They still did not know exactly what the future would hold. But they finally trusted me enough to stop forcing answers before my timing. Peace returned one quiet step at a time. That is often how I restore weary hearts. Not through sudden excitement, but through steady confidence that I remain in control. My beloved child, I also want to speak directly to your heart. Do not allow disappointment from yesterday to become suspicion toward tomorrow. If someone has wounded you, bring that pain to me instead of allowing it to harden your spirit. Bitterness always promises protection, but it quietly steals joy. Forgiveness does not erase wisdom. It simply frees your heart from carrying a burden I never asked you to keep. Continue walking with compassion. Continue praying instead of worrying. Continue trusting my perfect timing. I am already working where you cannot yet see. If these words are bringing hope to your heart today, share this message with someone who may be quietly losing hope. A single reminder of my faithfulness can become the beginning of healing for another soul. Never underestimate how I can use your kindness to strengthen someone else's faith. Every act of love reflects my heart. My child, listen carefully. There is still one conversation that has not yet taken place. It is the conversation your soulmate has delayed longer than any other. They know it cannot be avoided forever. They know honesty must now replace silence. Before speaking, they continue praying for wisdom because they no longer want emotions to lead them. They want my peace to guide every word. That desire itself is evidence of how much I have already changed their heart. My beloved child, do not rush ahead of me. Let my peace become your strength. Let my wisdom become your guide. What is unfolding now is no longer driven by fear, secret agreements, or yesterday's regrets. It is being shaped through prayer, truth, and surrender. The next words your soulmate speaks will not come from confusion. They will come from a heart that has finally chosen honesty over comfort. And when that long-awaited conversation begins, one sentence they have carried in silence for years will finally be spoken aloud, revealing why they could never truly leave behind what I had quietly written upon their heart from the very beginning. My child, listen carefully. The moment I have been preparing both of your hearts for has finally come near. Your soulmate woke before sunrise with a deep sense that running was no longer possible. The room was quiet. A soft light rested on the edge of the window. Their Bible remained open beside the bed where they had been praying night after night. They placed one hand upon its pages and whispered, "Lord, if my words are not guided by you, let silence protect me. But if truth must finally be spoken, give me courage." That prayer did not remove every fear. It gave them strength to walk through it. Courage always grows where surrender begins. My beloved child, they spent the next several hours thinking about every choice that had brought them to this moment. They remembered the secret agreement. They remembered the conversations built upon fear. They remembered the tears hidden from everyone around them. Yet another memory kept returning above every other one. It was not a grand event. It was a quiet moment when they once felt completely understood. They remembered a conversation where they did not need to pretend to be stronger than they were. They remembered feeling accepted instead of pressured. Those simple memories carried more peace than all the promises that had been offered through fear. My child, listen closely. Many people believe love is proved through dramatic moments. But lasting love is often revealed through quiet peace. It is found in honest conversations. It is found in patient prayers. It is found in the freedom to become who I created you to be. Your soulmate finally understood that they had confused emotional urgency with genuine peace. The two are never the same. Fear demands immediate action. My spirit gently invites faithful trust. That difference changed everything inside their heart. My child. Before making the call they had been avoiding, they stepped outside. The morning air felt cool. Birds sang from nearby trees. For the first time in many months, they noticed the beauty around them instead of the pressure within them. They quietly thanked me for stopping them before a lifelong decision was made for the wrong reason. Gratitude slowly replaced panic. Hope quietly replaced confusion. They still did not know every answer, but they finally trusted the one who did. My beloved child, then the phone began to ring. Their hands trembled as they waited for the other person to answer. Several long seconds passed. Finally, a familiar voice spoke. Your soulmate took a deep breath before saying anything. They refused to hide behind excuses. They refused to blame another person. Instead, they spoke with honesty. I need to tell you the truth. I agreed because I was afraid of being alone. That was unfair to both of us. I cannot continue with something that my heart knows is not built upon God's peace. Silence followed those words. It was not an angry silence. It was a silence filled with understanding that the truth had finally arrived. My child, listen carefully. Their ex did not respond with the anger your soulmate had feared for so long. Instead, there was a deep sigh. Then came unexpected words. I think I knew this before you said it. I was hoping things would somehow become different. Tears filled both hearts. There was sadness, but there was also freedom. They chose to bless one another instead of hurting one another. They prayed together before ending the conversation. Forgiveness entered where fear had once ruled. My child, that is how my grace works. It heals even painful endings. My beloved child, when that call ended, your soulmate remained seated in complete silence. No celebration followed. No dramatic excitement appeared. Instead, a quiet peace settled over their heart like gentle rain after a long season of drought. Peace does not always arrive with loud emotions. Sometimes it arrives as the absence of fear. They finally understood that obeying me often feels lighter than carrying the weight of pretending. The burden they had carried for months was gone. My child, while these events unfolded, I continued preparing your own heart. You had spent many nights asking whether waiting had been meaningless. Now I want you to understand something important. I never asked you to wait because I wanted you to suffer. I allowed the waiting because both hearts still needed healing. Had I brought everything together too soon, fear would have spoken louder than wisdom. My timing protects what my promises prepare. Trust that even when you cannot see every reason. My beloved child, there was still one final truth your soulmate needed to face. Ending the secret agreement had removed one burden, but another remained. They had never honestly admitted to themselves why your memory continued returning during prayer. They could no longer deny it. Every time they sought my direction, your name quietly appeared within their heart. They stopped resisting that reality. Instead, they brought it to me with open hands. Lord, if these feelings are only emotion, remove them. But if they remain because you still have a purpose beyond my understanding, teach me to trust you instead of rushing ahead. That prayer pleased me because it placed my will above personal desire. My child, listen closely. I desire hearts that seek my wisdom more than immediate answers. Your soulmate was finally becoming that kind of person. They were no longer asking me to quickly restore what had been broken. They were asking me to shape them into someone capable of loving with patience, honesty, humility, and faith. That transformation mattered far more than any outward circumstance. Relationships become stronger when two hearts first become closer to me. My child. In the days that followed, they began serving quietly at church again. They greeted people with genuine kindness. They prayed for strangers without expecting recognition. They opened scripture each morning instead of reaching for worry. Little by little, joy returned. Not because every question had been answered, but because they were learning to trust the one who already held every answer. Real peace is born through daily faithfulness, not temporary emotion. My beloved child, I want you to remember this truth whenever doubt tries to return. Someone else's confusion never changes my faithfulness. Someone else's delay never changes my perfect timing. Someone else's fear never cancels my ability to redeem what has been surrendered into my hands. Keep walking with me. Keep praying instead of worrying. Keep choosing forgiveness over resentment. I am working beyond what your eyes can presently understand. There is one final step still ahead before this season reaches its full purpose. Your soulmate now carries a peaceful heart, but they also carry words that have never been spoken directly to you. Those words are not meant to manipulate. They are not meant to pressure. They are simply the honest confession of someone who finally stopped hiding behind fear. Before those words are shared, I will first make sure both hearts are standing upon wisdom instead of emotion. That is why I ask you to remain patient a little longer. My child, stay close to me. Continue opening my word. Continue bringing every anxious thought into my presence. Continue believing that my plans are always rooted in love. What I begin, I complete according to my perfect purpose. The secret agreement that once seemed like the end of every hope became the very moment I used to expose hidden fear, restore forgotten faith, and lead two hearts toward deeper honesty. In what comes next, you will finally hear the quiet confession your soulmate has carried for years, and when those long-hidden words are spoken with humility instead of fear, you will understand why I never allowed yesterday's decision to become tomorrow's destiny. My child, listen carefully. Before this message comes to its gentle close, I want you to remember one truth above every other. I never abandoned you. Not for a single moment. Even when your heart felt forgotten, my hand remained upon your life. Even when your soulmate almost chose a different path, I was still working where neither of you could see. What looked like the end became the beginning of healing. What looked like rejection became protection. What looked like delay became preparation. My beloved child, your soulmate finally understands that fear can never build the future I have planned. The secret agreement to marry their ex was not born from lasting peace. It was born from uncertainty, loneliness, and unanswered questions. But I lovingly interrupted that path before it became permanent. I did not expose their weakness to shame them. I revealed it so they could be healed. Grace always seeks restoration before condemnation. You who are listening, I also ask something of you. Release your pain into my hands. Do not carry yesterday's disappointment into tomorrow's hope. Pray instead of worrying. Trust my timing. Continue growing closer to me every day. Whether your future unfolds differently than you imagined or beautifully exceeds your expectations, my plans for you are always rooted in love, wisdom, and faithfulness. Never measure my goodness by a single season. Measure it by the cross, where my love for you was already proven forever. When answers seem slow, remember that I often prepare hearts before I prepare circumstances. When doors seem closed, remember that I can open the right one at the perfect moment. When fear whispers that you have been forgotten, let my peace remind you that I am still writing a beautiful future. My child, thank you for staying until this moment. I pray these words have brought comfort to your heart and renewed your faith. If this message has encouraged you today, share it with someone who needs hope. Your simple act of kindness may become the answer to another person's quiet prayer. And now, before you leave, bow your heart with me for just a moment. Father, place your perfect peace inside every heart listening today. Heal every hidden wound. Replace fear with faith. Replace confusion with wisdom. Teach us to trust your timing above our own understanding. Let us wherever your love desires, and keep our hearts close to you every step of the way. In Jesus' name, Amen. If this message spoke to your heart, gently type Amen in the comments as your prayer of faith. Remember this always, my beloved child. My timing is never late. My love never fails. My grace is always enough. And I will continue walking beside you until every part of my good purpose for your life is complete.